Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast from OmegaMetroid.com. The whole band is back once again. Andy Spiteri, Dakota Lasky, Doomino Crossing. How are you, gentlemen, on this fine holiday in Canada, and apparently not a holiday in the United States of America? How you guys doing?
What holiday is it? Wait. Is it civic holiday?
It's
That's what my calendar says.
Yeah. I want to say it's Heritage Day or like something like that.
Okay.
It's one of those like fakakta holidays that people make up just because they want like a long weekend, you know? It's not a real holiday.
We need more of those, I think,
Yeah.
stateside.
I love those. They're great.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll kick it off. I'm doing good. This past weekend there was a lot of I just honestly just hung out this past weekend, but there was a lot of good stuff to watch. We were just talking, Andy. SummerSlam was on, Evo was on this past weekend. There was a big Halo tournament. There was a lot of I spent my whole Sunday watching the top sixes from Evo, which was sick. I also got another Destiny 2 solo flawless dungeon run in, and I don't know if there's any Neil Breen fans out there. If you're a movie okay.
Love Neil Breen.
Okay, so I finally saw Oppenheimer, that was pretty good.
But
I'm not a Neil Breen film.
Not a Neil Breen. I thought it was okay. I thought it was good. Like it just didn't like.
Hold on. Don't spoil anything. Not that
no,
I'm sure there's spoilers.
I'm not spoiling it. I thought it was pretty good. It didn't like blow me away.
Okay.
But I thought it was good. But I'm gonna see Cade the Tortured Crossing by Neil Breen this Thursday at the Alamo Draft House. The first time ever seeing a Neil Breen movie in theaters.
Oh, nice.
I'm super excited. I'm probably gonna watch some of the movies, not all of them. I don't need to watch all of them, but maybe a couple before that. So I'm excited about that. I'll report back next week, and then finally, Doom. I know that's probably more pertinent to you. I don't know if I mentioned this on the show last week, but I've been trying to get into Dread speedrunning lately. I know you kind of do that a little bit too.
Yeah, we've been going back and forth on like that new Dread speedrun category you made in our Discord server.
Yes, we've been chatting about it a lot. I regret speedrunning Metroid Dread boss rush mode, no turbo. I did not realize it's like, 5-minute speedrun, easy. I could totally do this. Like an idiot thinking I could just do this, waltz right in.
And then it's like, wait, I got carpal tunnel now.
When I've literally never done that in anything ever. And then my hand like is killing me. So I'm thinking like, do I really want it that bad? I'm gonna keep going at it because you posting clips. I'm like, I want to at least post some of my own clips and get some runs in. So I'm still motivated there. But yeah, been doing that as well.
There you go.
Echoing off Dak, like, yeah, despite the fact that this is the year of Metroid Prime Remastered, like, man, this year I've just been like super into Metroid Dread this year, going back into the boss rush mode in particular, and just, man, I've just been having so much fun just grinding it out. I haven't even gotten to the point where I'm looking up other speedruns yet. Like, I'll probably do that eventually and, use that to improve myself, but I'm just kind of just doing it on my own right now and just seeing what I can do without any outside help.
Runner.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's just kind of been fun just doing that, posting clips, seeing everyone's reactions, seeing other people like you get into as well has been super fun. And today I actually did some boss rush in on my computer, which was super fun. Doing some boss rush in 4K 60. You love to see it.
You know what? I love that actually, specifically you, Dak, because for a while. It was kind of like, I've played Metroid Dread, but it didn't connect with me, and I don't know when I'm going to play it again. So that makes me happy that both of you guys are getting back into it, which is ironic because I feel like I feel like of the three of us, maybe it's fair to say I'm maybe the biggest fan of Metroid Dread, but I haven't played it in forever since I did the walkthrough for the site because I played so much. In a short
I'm a pretty
time.
big fan of. Really, it's just like you take the music and the story aside, and Dread I think is like one of the best Metroid games. So I'm a huge fan of Metroid Dread.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like Metroid Dread as well. I'm probably the lowest of fandom of the three of us, but I think the thing is too is that like when I grew up playing a majority of the Metroid games I did, like I had less games back then. There were less games at the time. Nowadays, like. It's hard for me to, even for games I really like, unless it's like a game that you sink 60, 70, 80, 100 hours into the play, kind of move on from it, or I have some kind of addiction to it like Destiny or some multiplayer games, so that's why I play it all the time. So like, it's like I don't like Dread, it's just not a game that like, I gotta play this all the time, until I started picking up the speedrunning thing. which I've actually am now thinking I'm just going to do another casual playthrough of it, which is cool. Because yeah, I can kind of separate the story and the music. It is what it is. The gameplay is still a lot of fun. It's just I these days I just love sitting on my computer and mouse and keyboard and playing. And now I have another reason to play my Switch with like a regular controller, because usually it's just Smash Brothers. Now I've been playing a lot of Metroid Dread. I should look into Metroid Prime Remastered speedrunning as well. But Dread like 2D Metroid speedrunning is dope. And we talked about this, in the Discord behind the scenes a little bit too, is maybe doing a little bit of some speedrunning oriented episodes in the future. And there's a lot to talk about, especially just in 2D speedrunning, 2D Metroid speedrunning alone, not even just the entire franchise. It's a lot of cool, awesome stuff. So I was like, I want to give it a try. Like, probably not going to get a good time, but like, screw it. Let's see what
exactly.
Well,
yeah, for me, or sorry, you go, Andy.
No, I was going to kind of transition away actually and just kind of talk
Andy's
about Metroid Dread.
Speedrunner.
I'm speedrunning the show.
Speed run to the next section of this episode.
Well, I was going to segue actually, because you teed me right up talking about 2D Metroid speedruns. There was, in fact, a new Super Metroid speedrun world record set this last week, and it was something like absolutely insane. It was like 40 minutes and a handful of seconds. I don't have it in front of me, but by Oats and Goats, who's done,
40
he's
minutes and
probably
36 seconds.
Oh my god.
Any percent Super Metroid run, a world record 2 days ago. Yeah, one of the goats.
He's probably who you think of when you think of Super Metroid speedrunning or Metroid speedrunning, or arguably just speedrunning in general. Like I think of like him, I think of Zost and all those those guys that have been around seemingly for forever. So that happened. So it seems like speedrunning has kind of gained a little bit of momentum, no pun intended, in our Discord server the last couple days.
Yeah, it's definitely been a little bit of a renewed interest in. I mean, you mentioned Zost. I'm pretty sure Oats and Goats just took the
world record from him. Yeah.
From him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on speedrun.com. Yeah, 40 minutes and 36 seconds. And that's just any percent. I'm pretty sure he is in the top 10 for 100% run, for a low percent. He's in the top 4. So, I mean, just like Zost and some others, are definitely a prolific speedrunner. And I would love to jump into more of his stuff, too. And you mentioned Zost as well. Also, Zost, not Oats and Goats who set the record, but Zost was one of the racers in the AGDQ 2014 Super Metroid Showcase race, which is my favorite speedrun of all time, and one I hope we get to talk about on the show at some point in the future. That was ran against Garrison, Ivan, and Krauser. So really, really awesome run. But shouts to Oats and Goats for that record. That was really sick.
Crazy record. I beat Super Metroid in like an hour and change once, and I felt like a rock star. I was walking around like this. I was like, I'm so awesome. And like so these guys are like 20 minutes off of that, and it's absolutely wild to see that. But actually, speaking of Metroid Dread, we actually have like a ton of Metroid Dread stuff to get into today. But at first, I actually want to tee up an episode for next week, and one that I'm actually really, really excited about. And I'm going to set the table a little bit here. If you remember about a year ago, I did an episode where I kind of retold the story of Metroid Other M while using the same general framework of the premise of Other M, which I've always kind of maintained is like, decent. And we're going to do that next week with Metroid Dread. Specifically, these two gentlemen here, who I think took umbrage with a lot of the story elements in Metroid Dread, we're going to have a show where we're essentially script doctoring and presenting you the Metroid Dread that each Dak and Doom wishes that they could have seen. I'm really stoked about this. I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with.
Simultaneously excited and nervous because it's like, man, what if I put my heart and soul to this and everyone just despises it? Like Doom, that is the worst that is the worst Tumblr fan fiction I've heard in my life. Why did you utter that out of your mouth?
That's happened before on this show, and that's okay. I've had some ideas. And I remember Dak just being like, "That's garbage. That sucks." And maybe they did, but like it's fun to think of anyways.
Hey, I'm not prone to my own garbage, awful, sucky ideas myself. Doom, I'll say to you that in this case, make the Metroid game that you want. Who cares what other people think? You're the only user, the only consumer of this game. But I have been thinking about that because I'm like, do I want to do the story that I really want, or the one that I want but also makes sense in terms of how the ending of Fusion is interpreted, based on what you're reading and whatnot. So I'm kind of been thinking about that. Like, should I do one that like, do I have to accept how maybe a certain aspect of a story actually was presented or meant to be presented versus how it actually was? Who knows? So I got to think about that. But yes, we'll do a light treatment, if you will. I'm not going to write a script or anything, but I will do a detailed synopsis, at least I would have to imagine, for that.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't need a script, since I mean Metroid isn't really a series based on dialogue other M aside, so you mostly just need.
Well, it wouldn't have to be a long script.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. Just bullet
It
points.
could be a pretty
and...
short script.
Yeah.
You only need a couple of scenes and just throw them at random points in the story. Screw it.
Yeah, so I'm excited about that. I'm excited to see what you guys come up with, and it's always cool to see those creative juices flowing. And while we're on the Metroid Dread train, a little bit of news. Although, as best as I can tell, this is still unconfirmed, but it seems like Metroid Dread has officially passed the 3 million mark, cementing itself as the best-selling Metroid game. Mercury Steam CEO Enrique Alvarez had Enrique. Okay. He had an interview where he said something. He actually said it. He said a bunch of things, and I really don't think he came off very well at all, actually. But one of the key things that he said was, I'm actually going to read the quote in full, because he kind of tied it into the reports that there is a lot of, there's a lot of like not great working conditions at Mercury Steam, which is a story that seemed to kind of come and then get swept under the rug really quick. So this was his quote. "We have an excellent understanding of each other. I think that it's fair to say that over time we became friends, and they are super talented people, super hardworking people. They have work ethic that is unbeatable. They are open to accept new ideas, and we never ceased to suggest and propose ideas. I don't think the development was chaotic. Chaotic development doesn't end with one of the best games in the franchise. It doesn't end with a game that has sold over 3-point-something million copies. It doesn't end with a game that won TGA awards. That's all I have to say about that." So I want to stand on my soapbox for just a quick second here.
I was going to say, let's hear what you think about what was just said before we move on.
So, first of all, I don't know about you guys, but like I just like inherently don't trust a CEO. He could be the nicest guy in the world, but if there's a CEO saying one thing and a worker saying another, I'm going to believe the worker over the CEO. Second of all, I feel like he didn't come off very well, because he seemed very dismissive, and he literally is not acknowledging the series' own history, where you have, an extremely chaotic development of a little game called Metroid Prime, which won all these awards, which sold 3-point-some million copies, which did everything Metroid Dread did. And so, like, I feel like those two things can be true at the same time, where you have this amazing quality game, which Dread is, and you can maybe have a working environment that is not so harmonious. So I thought that he came off not that great in this interview, but the important thing to note here is that he is saying that, like, the game has officially surpassed 3 million copies. Doom, we were kind of chatting. I couldn't find any like sales figures from Nintendo to support this, but he's probably right. I mean, it's been at 2.9 for like the last year.
So from what I understand, in the recent sales report that was just released, that kind of showed Tears of the Kingdom hitting 18 million. Which, by the way, Tears of the Kingdom at 18 million.
That is disgusting.
That is.
Can I interject and tell you guys a story really quick? And I'm gonna look like the biggest goof in the world here, but like, so about a year before Tears of the Kingdom came out, I was, because I do the Zelda cast, and it can be frustrating when you have this big game and know nothing about it for like 3+ years. So I'm on my soapbox and I'm just like, this game is gonna sell less than half of what Breath of the Wild does, because people are tired of not knowing anything about it. Nobody knows. Man, oh man, it's gonna outsell Breath of the Wild in like a year. Anyways,
getting back to the main topic though. So, from what I understand, the sales data of Metroid Dread was revealed to be 3.04 million as of December 2022 in that same report. I looked through the financial data and the documents, and I couldn't find anything. But there's also like a ton of information and material to sift through, and it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest to access for the consumer. So I could very well just have missed something, but from what I heard, that recent sales report is where those official hard stats were revealed. But going on to the comments made by Alvarez, I 100% agree. I think that was super out of pocket and just definitely like, well, because like not only is it dismissive, like those two things are completely unrelated to each other. Like you know,
Yeah.
you can have I mean, we've heard so many stories about, you know, incredible genre defining games that have just had, you know, the most heartless and just brutal crime. I mean, you know, The Last of Us Part 2 is a big one. You know, that's a, you know, regardless of your personal thoughts on it, I think most people would argue that, like, critically, that's going to be a generational defining game. And another defining fact about that game is the insane amount of crunch and the pressure that was put on Naughty Dog. And so, you know, obviously, like, the quality of a game has nothing to do with, you know, the working conditions of the staff. And, you know, to just dismiss it like that, I think is just super gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have too much to add to that. I think we can all agree that obviously there can be games that have chaotic development be good, chaotic development be bad, and vice versa and all that. Unless he's trying to say low key that Metroid Prime is not one of the best games in the franchise by saying
That's
stuff
bold.
like that by how he's saying it, but I doubt it. I mean, this I don't know like what the context. I've just kind of read like the articles reporting on it. I'm sure it just kind of comes off as like an emotional response. I don't think there's necessarily much like actual substance and logic behind it. Just trying to kind of defend the project. I think we can take the sold over 3 million something copies at face value, though. I mean, I don't see the reason why that would be an emotional response or a lie. And I think we can all agree that like it was at pretty much 3 million. It was going to surpass 3 million one way or another, and essentially needed to sell less than 1 million units over the course of almost a year to do that, if not a year. So,
Yeah.
not really a surprise. It does make it the best-selling Metroid game of all time, which is really cool that the newest game has done that. I think that bodes well for the franchise. You could be pedantic and maybe make an argument that technically Metroid Prime has sold more if you include Trilogy and Metroid Prime Remastered and all that. But I think as an individual title, Metroid Dread obviously takes the cake there. So, yeah, I mean, it was kind of like all the chaotic development stuff like kind of like left the news cycle obviously as Metroid Dread did, so it's kind of interesting how he just kind of like brought it right back up again. Not to say that people have necessarily forgotten about it, just not really, you know, on top of mind. But yeah, the 3 million mark, that was really kind of case closed. I know some people were talking about that like it doesn't really have much of a like a tail in terms of its sales. It was super front loaded and then didn't really have a lot of sales afterward, but I'm not super surprised by that either, considering it's a smaller single player game on the Switch for a mid popularity Nintendo franchise. I don't think it's going to be one of those games that, you know,
Yeah.
like Elden Ring, it's out a year later and it's still at the
2D
top of the
game,
Steam charts, something like
nonetheless.
that. And a 2D game, yeah. So,
You know, I don't
yeah.
think 2D has much to do with it, but I mean, you're right.
I think it does. I think it does.
I think I mean for us it doesn't, but I think for like the general like outside of the Metroid fandom consumer base, I think it does.
Yeah, I mean that's where a lot of
maybe,
that, like,
but
price
like,
tag stuff like kind of came from. Like that whole discussion: is this Metroid Dread worth the full price thing? Like a lot of that kind of stems from it being a 2D platformer. When people are like, why am I paying $60 for a 2D platformer? I could pay $60 for this big open world 3D RPG that has 100 hours of gameplay and all this stuff, blah blah blah. And that's kind of like, so I do think I agree with Doom. Like, yeah, for more maybe hardcore dedicated fans of the series or gamers in general, sure, but like for especially the larger audience and like the larger gaming industry at like, you know, whatever, like that I think definitely plays a role into it.
I'm not convinced of that, but I don't want to spend any more time talking about that. I think like, you know, you're right. Like it's front loaded, obviously, and it rarely goes on sale, like almost never, and like there's no DLC for it, so it doesn't not make sense that the sales are close to what they were a couple months after it came out. And I would say you're probably going to see the same thing with Metroid Prime. I think it's sold about as much as it's going to sell. Metroid Prime Remastered, that is. I think it's sold about as much as it's going to sell unless it goes on like a really awesome wicked sale or something like that. So, yeah.
I could see during the holidays Metroid Prime Remastered maybe getting a little bit of a push or like maybe a little bit of a bump because it's already like on sale by being $40, so to speak. So like I could see it maybe like Nintendo like putting it into like a holiday, like here's the games you should get. It's only $40, blah blah, and seeing a little bit of a bump there.
I could see small spikes happening when the Metroid Prime 4 marketing cycle happens. That's kind of where I
Yeah.
see like some little bumps there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. We haven't had like a marketing push for Metroid since Dread came out because Remastered didn't have one. So neither Dread nor Remastered got that kind of bump from something like that.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if when Prime 4 kind of gets going into gear here, if maybe that helps Metroid Prime Remastered and Metroid Dread. Maybe if it's just Metroid Prime. But we're not done with Metroid Dread today, because one of our favorite segments returns, and we are here today to analyze one of, I actually think it's probably the best area in Metroid Dread, Ferenia. So let's get going here. Mapping Metroid is on, and this week is all about the destroyed Chozo city of Ferenia. So let's get started here, and let's talk about. Maybe we should just say just very quick first initial impressions, then we can talk a little bit more specific. But I think this is probably my favorite area, because it's an area that you don't get. You don't get a lot of other areas like this in the series. I don't feel like it almost reminds me of Sanctuary Fortress in a way, where it's like kind of this almost like technological, like it's an advanced city that used to be something. And I think you look at Metroid Prime and even the other areas of Metroid Dread, and they're very like video game kind of levels. You got like the forest level, fire level, water level, right? Like this one just feels a little bit different, stands out a little bit more to me, has a sense of like history to it a little bit. So this very quickly for me became one of my favorite areas, and I think it probably has the best music track in the game as well.
Doom, go ahead. I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, definitely not my favorite music, but am inclined to agree that I think this is the best area in the game. I think it's also really unique for a Chozo area too, because prior to Metroid Prime 3, most of the Chozo areas were like Chozo Ruin style areas, and they all kind of, I don't want to say they blended together, but they all had very similar theming. And then Skytown came in, and this was a brand new take on a Chozo area, where you kind of had these steampunk elements, and now here you have Ferenia, and you almost have this avant-garde like royal kind of thing, which we've never really seen with the Chozo before, and it kind of makes sense with the Mockin, where it's this very authoritarian like leader type of tribe, and so it kind of makes sense to to have this almost cult like worship. You have these effigies and these statues of these almost deified like leaders in the background, but then and then you also have all the destroyed tapestry, which kind of tells the story about, the battleground that happened beforehand versus the Chozo and the X, which I think that the environmental storytelling in this area alone is probably some of the best in the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you both kind of boiled it down to what I was going to say, which is that it actually has some kind of lore and story implications as opposed to being just kind of a generic video game area. And yeah, that's a good point. It stands apart from like kind of the traditional Chozo, architecture and aesthetic that you would associate it with, which makes sense because it's more Malkin than the other Chozo we've seen in the series previously, which are not necessarily Malkin. So, yeah, I like this area. I mean, it certainly does not have the best music, but
you don't think this is the best music in the game?
I mean, it all
close.
blends together.
Okay.
I don't think there is a best music in the game.
It's nowhere near the worst music in the game. I'll tell it, it's okay. It's fine. I don't hate it, but
Dairon's probably a better track, actually. Nothing. Okay. Let's talk about the actual, just like quickly, layout of this area. One thing that again, it's kind of unique to Ferenia in a way, is like you can get there earlier in the game, but you're very limited in where you can actually go at that point. And so like you actually like essentially you have one way in and one way out of this area until you kind of accrue all of your power-ups, and then you can go back to the point that you came in originally. It feels like very I don't know, like on an island almost into itself, because like you have to go through Gavrin, and really Ferenia is pretty much the last really big area that you need to explore before you could finally reach the surface of the planet, which again kind of makes it feel a little bit special to me because the rest of the areas are, they're more or less interconnected with each other as you would find in a typical Metroid game, where this one just feels a little bit removed almost, and that's always kind of stuck out to me for as a distinctive factor about Ferenia.
Yeah, I like that there's a little bit of like a tease, a little bit of a taste at the beginning, which does set you up of like there's a little bit of anticipation. You're obviously going to be digging more into a planet that is very clearly occupied by Chozo. Whereas at that point in the game, you're still kind of moving through the worlds. They're all interconnected, but you're still kind of piecing together and what's going to happen. And that's one of the first parts of the game where you really, aside from the game, having like the cutscene with Ravenbeak and whatnot, like kind of gives you a little more of a clue of what you're going to be jumping into next, which is cool and something that I think Metroid does well, not only from a gameplay sense, from a storytelling sense as well.
So there's a guy named Arcade Redux, and kind of going back into the music of the game for a second. I promise I'm not gonna like poo-poo on the music too hard, but there's a guy named Arcade Redux who's been like doing new interpretations of music for Metroid Dread, and one thing that he proposed in Ferenia that I totally agree with is I think the first trip that you go there, I think it would have benefited a lot more to have a more subtle ambient track rather than playing the main theme. I think it would have been more appropriate for that first visit to just give you a little taste and then play that main theme on your second trip once it becomes like an opened up area. Kind of a good example.
Like Super Metroid at the beginning.
Yeah, Super Metroid too. I was thinking of Samus Returns, where you start off with that original surface theme before it goes back into that original Metroid 2 tunnel theme. But that little subtle surfaces thing, something kind of like that when you first enter the area, I think would be more appropriate to fit that scene.
Yeah, I guess so. I can't say that stuck out to me, but I don't disagree. Like when you said that Super Metroid immediately sticks out to me, the music that plays until you get the Morph Ball, then the main themes kind of kick back in. Could have been pretty cool, especially considering the gravity of the cutscene that you're about to see when you go in there. I want to talk about some of the individual rooms in Ferenia, some of my favorite rooms. And again, I'm going to complain about this until the day I die, but like, I wish that 2D Metroid had like names for rooms, because you spend half the time trying to describe the room so people can know what you're actually talking about, which is aggravating.
That's why I like doing Metroid Prime Mapping Metroid, because it's way easier to do the first two sections of these shows for those games, just saying. Which is why I don't have a lot of notes.
The big room with all the enemies.
Yeah, I think that's the room everybody thinks about, right? Let's just I called that like the main hall when I was writing the walkthrough, which I think is like a fine name. And it's like the big, massive room. It's one of the biggest rooms in the game. And it's full, chock-a-block full of different enemies, different boss fights, different obstacles, stuff like that. I think that I probably speak for almost everyone saying like that's the room that I think of when I think of Ferenia.
Yeah, I think I agree with that.
Another room that it's actually not a room. It's more so like a series of rooms, or like I guess like a pathway. But I always thought that the tunnel, it's not really quite a tunnel, but it's extra ruiny. Like it looks like extra beat up. The pathway that you take on your way to fight Escue, I always thought looked like really, really cool, really disheveled, really just kind of in ruin in a way where even like the main hallway still looks like very grandiose, very, very regal and put together and majestic in a way. This one just looks like something just tore right through it, and it looks very ruinous. I really kind of like the aesthetic of that room, and it's got like a really cool background going on too, like a little bit of stormy skies and stuff like that. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Like I specifically right before you fight Escue, I like how you kind of go to like this balcony area, and you can see like some of the caves in the background. Yeah, and you can actually see Escue flying in the background as well to kind of like foreshadow the incoming fight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's not a room either, but I did want to shout out, I think that the tram cars in this area, even more so than any other area, they just look really cool to me. I don't know why, but I just like, maybe it's because you pull up and you can immediately start like doing this like cool Shinespark puzzle, but For some reason, I think that the tram cars just look super super sweet. And I would say this as well, talking about rooms in Ferenia. I think I could be comfortable saying that this is probably the best Emmy zone in the game and probably the most challenging Emmy zone in the game because it's a lot of it is submerged in water and you do some like really cool like Spider-Man stuff with your grapple hook, like getting around underwater and you're fighting off the Emmy, which we'll talk about later. But I think for my money, this is probably the Emmy zone that I enjoyed the most. I don't know if you guys would agree with that or not.
There's definitely, it feels like an obstacle course, like more than the other ones in a lot of ways. Yeah, I really like this one, and it's one where like require. I mean, yeah, I believe it requires the gravity. Like you need the grapple and you need the gravity suit for this one. I'm pretty sure, or at least the very least the grapple beam, to zip around. So yeah, this is a cool one, and it's also with a cool Emmy with a cool paint job.
Hey, I like that paint job.
I was gonna say this is definitely my favorite Emmy zone. I will say, on Dread mode, I think the blue Emmy is a little more difficult just because that turns into a one-hit kill if it even sees you because of the ice. But we're not talking about Gaverin today, so we won't go into that. But again, this is my favorite Emmy zone. I think, Dak, I think you summed it up really well by calling it like an obstacle course because,
Yeah.
you visit this on multiple trips and there's quite a bit of distance when you first meet the enemy and when you actually get to defeat it, which you don't usually see. It's usually you meet the enemy, you meet the enemy, and then very soon you kill it and you get the power up. This one you play a game of cat and mouse for a fairly decent bit of time before you actually have the means to finally take it out, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
I want to say too, something's telling me that you have to go through this without the gravity suit as well.
I think
You
you
do your
do.
first
Yeah.
first run. You do, yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I feel like is very like just intense, and you're really right. Like the Emmy zone doesn't feel like other Emmy zones because like I feel like in all the other Emmy zones you can kind of like explore a little bit more freely, as free as you can in the Emmy zones. Where this one, at least in my playthroughs, I always felt like this Emmy was like right on you right away, and it was just like a sprint to get the heck out of there before it shot you, which it can shoot through walls as well, which makes it extra challenging. So yeah, this is my favorite Emmy zone. I think actually probably by a large margin. And then one other thing that sticks out to me in Ferenia is that for whatever reason, there's a bunch of rooms that are frozen. Like they have the submerged the sub-zero temperatures rather going on, and there's some pretty cool like puzzles and stuff that you can do in some of these rooms. But it kind of seems weird that they're frozen. I don't know if there's like a good reason for it or not, but no room in particular because there's more than a few of them. But they stick out to me as well.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember why they are. I mean,
I don't think there's a reason.
Do you encounter that after you fight the big crazy the Z2L whatever one that like has destroyed or like taken care of the reactor or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't access the you can access the ice areas if you're speedrunning, but the game doesn't want you to access the ice areas until after you get gravity suit, which you would have by the time you face that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those are the rooms that kind of stick out to me. I feel like those are most of the big ones. Did I miss anything, or should we move on?
I don't know. I was going to talk about Shinespark puzzles. I don't know if you want to save that for later.
We'll save it for later. Yeah, we'll save it for later. Let's talk about some of the lore of the city. We touch on it a little bit, and again, just a very cool, very different area. You can, as you kind of pointed out, the layout and like all the imagery and stuff like that really suggests that this is like it's almost like a kingdom rather than like a city. It seems like very like regal and fantastical, and obviously it's in disarray. This is where the Makan tribe kind of made their home before Ravenbeak brought those dang X-parasites back over. But it still has like it's ruined, but it's not like destroyed. I think it looks,
Yeah.
you know what? It actually looks like almost like Castlevania-esque, where it looks like it's falling apart, but like still this majestic kind of regal space.
Yeah, the word ruin is used, I think, a couple times to describe the area, and I guess it is true because a few years has passed since like the X outbreak happened, and it is technically ruined in some aspects, but it comes across as more like dilapidated, abandoned to me, than ruins. Because when I think of ruins, I think of like the Chozo ruins, or just like ruins in general that have been there for mad long. Even though even the Chozo ruins apparently hadn't been there for really that long either until we got there. But I guess a few decades of not lack of maintenance can do that to you. But yeah, it's I thought it was interesting because when I looked this area up a little bit, I obviously remember even from playing it, it's very castle-y. It's like a palace almost. I kind of got like palace temple vibes from it. And apparently, according to the Metroid Dread reports, that it's some kind of like sanctuary used for like Chozo rituals, which was, now I read that, I looked back like, does this really give me like sanctuary and Chozo like rituals vibes? And I guess it in a way it doesn't, because again it comes across as more of like a palace or a museum or something. But on the other hand, it was inhabited by the Makin, who are super like, you know, militaristic and like, you know, strict and whatever. Maybe this is the kind of place they'd be doing their weird, you know, rituals and whatnot. It wouldn't exactly look like, you know, something that's closer to like a Thoha or whatever's going on Talon or an Elysia. So I thought that was the first thing that stood out to me when I was looking this stuff back up. But yeah, it's very like castle-y, palacey. It's more about like, it's more regal than it's showboaty compared to like Chozo stuff, right? It's very gilded and all of that. And was lived in or whatever not too long ago, so it's still pretty intact. So you can kind of see almost exactly how it looked pretty much for the most part when the Makin were inhabiting it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very distinct again, which is why I think I like it so much. Doom, any thoughts about just kind of the overall aesthetic and story implications of this area?
Yeah, I like it because it almost gives the sense that, like, not like a fresh battle has taken place, but like you see like a, you know, as you go through the area, you see like the history of like a great battle that took place. And that's something that I feel like, maybe I could be wrong, but off the top of my head, I don't recall like any Metroid area that really has had anything like that, where you see like, you know, a story being told of like a specific, you know, siege that took place in, you know, this specific location. Like, obviously you have lore entries about stuff like that, but in terms of like the environmental storytelling, I hadn't really seen an environment like actually depict stuff like that. So I think, you know, Dread actually embarking on that is like a really cool and unique avenue.
Well, you in a smaller kind of way, Super Metroid kind of has that, right? Because you go through the area where Samus and Mother Brain fought in the first game.
Yeah,
That
So
is
you
true,
kind of have
yeah.
that. That's like, I would, and that's like the one though. That's kind of like the outlier, and it's certainly not a huge battle, but it was a significant battle. And you walk right through those ruins, which is really cool. But yeah, no, that's a good point. It's definitely something like you kind of see more of like the history of something that didn't really happen too long ago either, which I think is really cool too, because you're not very far separated from when it actually happened.
Yeah, that's a great point. I like that a lot actually, and I just like, I like seeing that kind of like these battles that are fought in these unconventional areas in Metroid, and seeing like it's almost like you just missed it. So I really dig that a lot. This is obviously,
Can I?
yeah, just go ahead.
Well, something else that also just occurred to me is, and this is, you know, me just, you know, thinking way too much into it, but something that just occurred to me as well is, you know, you don't typically see battles fought in like castles and palaces. Like that's usually where someone makes their last stand as well. So I think the implications of that as well, you know, and which also makes sense in this, by the time Samus gets there, it's just Ravenbeak and Quiet Road. They're the last ones left, basically. So I think
Yeah.
that also like makes sense as well.
Well, that's like a cool element of it too, because it
Yeah.
literally reached everybody but them two. So like, of course, like a fight would break out there as well, and it would have been really cool to maybe even see scenes of that, like maybe a cutscene of
Yes.
like the Chozo who are there fighting off the infected Chozo warriors and whatnot that are, you know, overrunning the whole palace or whatever. That would have been really cool. That would have been a sick cutscene to have in the game.
I was gonna suggest, it's too bad that, like, you know, speaking of Metroid Dread not really having support after release, it's too bad that we never got like a batch of DLC set on ZDR, and like you're playing as Ravenbeak and you're fending off all these X parasites, and maybe
That's a whole new game.
or like a whole new spin-off,
game.
and like
I
maybe
love
it's
that.
it's almost like
DLC
Dread mode.
is a whole new game.
Well, like maybe it's just in Ferenia, but like I don't know, but like, you know,
It could be like it could be like, you know, those little Xenoblade expansions. Like they're still meaty games, but they're nowhere near as big as like the main games.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I
like
think
if
it
you
would've-
get hit once
Right.
by the X, you're toast, because like you don't
Then
have
yeah.
anything protecting you from them. So like it'd be challenging.
mode.
Yeah, oh, that'd be
Parasite
awesome.
mode or something. That would be cool.
Andy,
But-
I I can't remember if it was you or Dak that I pitched it, but like I've wanted like a DLC like that, and it kind of starts similar to like the Force Unleashed. I don't know if you guys have played Force Unleashed before.
No.
I mean, I
Well,
have, but
basically,
I haven't played it in mad long.
well, the tutorial level you play as Darth Vader before you play as Star Killer for the rest of the game. But the tutorial level you're Vader and you're just kind of slaughtering everything in your path. Like it's like and I feel like that tutorial level could be Ravenbeak on SR388 with the Chozo, and then the rest of the game could be Ravenbeak, fending off the X, the real threat.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. I mean, honestly, I think like I wish that there was just more Metroid Dread and more Ravenbeak actually specifically because I do wish that we did get more of him. But
I would have liked that. I mean, those have been perfect moments in the story to like give us a little bit more of that story. I mean, I remember the first time I played Dread, and even when I played it after that, it was like there's story at the beginning, nothing, and then story in the middle, and like it could have been paced out a little bit more if you had maybe a cutscene like that kind of dove into like maybe seeing the outbreak of it all happening from beginning to end as like a series of, I hate to say flashbacks as I get on Zelda's case about that recently, but at least it would be supplementing an active story as opposed to being the whole thing. That would have been great, and it would have been a nice, cool, like 30-second even little shot. It's like show the fight or something like that. That'd been really cool.
Would have been an adequate replacement for the Chozo lore that you get in this game, which is cool because like you see all the pictures and like.
Yeah, give me Chozo's story. I don't need lore. Give me I'm down for Chozo's story now. Give me some of that.
I think we deserve at least one cutscene of Ravenbeak taking out a whole squad of X and then hitting the gritty. I think that's appropriate.
Ravenbeak could not. That was not taking out anybody. I honestly don't believe in real life Ravenbeak would have been one of the two last survivors. I'm sorry.
Hey,
would have been Malkin by himself.
he could have easily finished Samus off if not for his own hubris. He
released him. Yeah, he literally dies to a single robot Chozo warrior. Would not defeat Samus in any capacity.
You're thinking of Quiet Robe, I think.
He did. Yeah,
isn't that what I said?
No. We're talking about Quiet. Yeah, I think you're talking about Quiet. We're talking about Ravenbeak, the
man.
You're talking about Quiet Robe.
I was talking about Quiet Robe. Well
let's talk about Quiet Robe.
Samus because Samus beat him.
Wow, there you go. Yeah, Quiet Robe. He was not beating anybody, unfortunately. And this is the area, like you mentioned, Dak, where you do get quite a bit of exposition from Quiet Robe.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you meet Quiet Robe here for the first time. Yes, I didn't forget about that, but like you're right. That is direct lore right there.
I think this is a great scene actually, and like it informs you about the Metroid universe. It kind of tells you about the different Chozo tribes, which I think we'd all kind of suspected after Samus returns, but just makes it official. And I like that they added like a little bit of edge to the Chozo. Maybe they're not all like this benevolent. What did I just say? They're not all this like peaceful, benevolent. Thank you.
You were there, benevolent. Yeah, you were there. You had it.
Was I there? Okay,
you had it. Yeah.
My point. All these Chozo are presented as like these godlike, amazing creatures, and maybe that's not the case. Maybe that's not entirely true. So I like that they added that little bit of edge. I know that we had some disagreements about Samus's reaction to seeing.
You can't
see
Chozo. It, but if you're listening to this, my face is turned twisted to the left because I don't necessarily agree with that premise. But go on.
I like the story of Metroid Dread, but I will say I do think that it could have been. I think some flashbacks or something like something might have helped it along, kind of, because it's a lot of information, and you're kind of looking at Quiet Robe as he's telling you all this information. If you could have seen like Ravenbeak kicking ass and like and the X actually breaking out and like kind of like a stylized flashback like you see in the opening of the game when you see Samus in like the fusion suit and all that kind of stuff, I think that would have helped it along a little bit. So yeah. I can't disagree with you there.
I'm not going to take too much time on this, but I have a couple of things to say. I mean, going back to this, I think, yes, the two problems. Number one, it's a huge exposition dump. He's just throwing all this information you all at once. There are little images and cutscene, like little like art pieces and images that do help it along. Like you're not just staring at them the whole time, but you're staring at them a little bit of it. And then it's also a problem of like the game, like all of this story stuff was added later. It's not like this was all from like conceived from the beginning of the Metroid story, so like they're trying to like inform you about explain all of this stuff that was just introduced, so they have to do it all. Like there's not a lot of time to do that. I've kind of flipped on like, do I like the whole like, oh, the Chozo are they're not just good or bad, they're gray. I mean, I never necessarily thought the Chozo were how you just described, like godlike or anything, or even necessarily good or benevolent. I always just thought that I mean, maybe the ones in 2D Metroids, but like I was thinking about like the Metroid Prime Chozo, as I thought about earlier. As far as I know, we don't know what tribe those Chozo are. Correct? We have no idea what the Chozo in Prime are.
No.
At least, they could be Thoha, but they might not be. They kind of look similar, so there's a good chance
they could be
are,
something new too. Like they could just be their own thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that when I think of that Chozo tribe, I never necessarily thought of them as good or bad. I just thought of them as these Chozo who, from what I remember correctly, were going to town for some spiritual reason. So they're spiritual to some extent. Whereas the Thoha are kind of more spiritual than the militaristic, but they're more like sciencey. They're not necessarily spiritual. They're more engineers and scientists, which I guess the Prime Chozo kind of also are too. But I always just thought they were just trying to survive. They weren't necessarily good or bad. They were just they had an objective, they were doing it, and then they got thrown into the situation. They were trying to survive, whatever. They're most likely good, but I never necessarily thought of them like, oh, the Chozo are all good. So I think when it came into Samus Returns and Dread, and it kind of changed into, well, this is the good tribe, this is the bad tribe, they're the evil ones because they're tall and skinny and edgy and they wear black, and these are the good ones because they wear yellow and they're bright and they're round. It's like it simplified it a bit too much to me. I would like it if they showed us more of the gray area of the Chozo. Yeah, this whole Quiet Robe Expedition dump definitely like opens up the Chozo lore a lot. Maybe not necessarily the way I like or necessarily wanted it, but like it's not bad. It's just a huge exposition dump all at once. This game needed the spread the story out a little bit more instead of kind of remembering once in a while. Oh, hey, wait, we need to give you some information to continue. Doom, what do you think?
I got a lot to say. I'm not going to recap what you said about the exposition dump because you pretty much covered anything I was going to say right there. Samus saying that her line in Chozo, awesome. Genuine pop-off moment. Even though, as you might remember, I actually didn't realize that was Samus saying that on my first play.
Yes, I remember a little while you were like, didn't know who that was, and that was like a thing.
I was like, was that someone on the radio? Like, what?
It was the narrator.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, wow.
Oh boy.
I don't even know what.
That's a throwback. That's an OMP throwback right there.
I was sober too, so I don't have an excuse. I don't know what was going on there, but anyways, genuine pop-off moment. That's awesome. Brinstar Red, overused at this point, but still a really cool song, and I really like the specific version of it. My single biggest issue with this scene, aside from the fact that it's, a giant exposition dump, is that it completely reframes Samus exterminating the Metroids as a wholesale good, and I don't like that because it contradicts the entire themes of the series, including themes in Metroid Dread. Because a big theme of Metroid is Samus saving that baby Metroid and the good that it was able to create for the galaxy and the bond that it created with Samus. And it's that bond that it created with Samus the reason why it eventually got back into her system through the vaccine, and why ultimately she was able to take out Ravenbeak. Without that Metroid vaccine, Ravenbeak probably would have won, at least according, to how the game frames those cutscenes. So I really don't like how the game ultimately tries to reframe Metroid 2 in that light, which kind of goes further and more into like some other issues I have with Samus Returns. This game kind of doubles down on that.
Does it try and reframe Metroid 2? Okay, give me an example of what you're talking about.
So I don't know the quote off the top of my head, but Quiet Robe is talking about how Ravenbeak's plan was to go back to SR388 after he contained the X in Elun, but he couldn't because by the time he went back to SR388, Samus had exterminated the Metroids, and Quiet Robe basically goes, "Thank you, Samus, for exterminating those Metroids and foiling Ravenbeak's plan. We couldn't." And I'm like, I get what you're trying to do, but I feel like we're starting to contradict some major overarching themes of the series here, and so yeah, overall, not a fan of that personally.
I think I call I'm not going to call shenanigans on that because
the lore master calls shenanigans.
I can't remember his quote. He definitely says that he was going back to SR388, and by the time he got there, the Metroids were extinct. I don't know that maybe I'm rusty, but I don't remember it being like, wow, thank you for doing this great service for us. In my recollection, and I could be wrong, but wasn't it just a matter of fact statement? Like, there's no more Metroids.
Like, well, so here's the thing. It would be one thing if, from Quiet Robe's perspective, he thought it was a good thing. But I guess my issue, and again, this might just me be looking like way too deep into things. I tend to do that a lot. But I kind of wish maybe, you can have the game, the game's perspective and, kind of the overall narrative the game is trying to tell you versus what a character is trying to tell you. And the game's message can be very different from a character's message, even if it appears positive. And if I think the game, tried to... And maybe the game does, because again, Samus's Metroid powers is ultimately what saves the day. So maybe the game in some way does do that. But I guess in that moment, it almost felt like, I don't know. I'm just rambling on at this point.
I see what you're saying. I just don't know that Dread, it to me, did that necessarily. I kind of had a viewpoint of because Samus did this, it set in a chain of events that almost put her in danger, because it almost is like penance in a way for getting rid of all these Metroids, because fusion doesn't happen, ZDR doesn't get destroyed, she doesn't get attacked by Ravenbeak and turn into a Metroid at the end of the game if she doesn't exterminate all the Metroids. So it's kind of like everything's tied together. It's not... I felt like it wasn't presenting her extermination of the Metroids in a good or a bad light, just in a factual, this is what happened, this was the plan. But I see what you're saying, and I think that's I think that's valid, a very good reason for it as well. I would be a little bit kind of just if they explicitly said wow, you did a great thing by eliminating these Metroids, because I think that they've tried to go and say that that, while was necessary, wasn't always a great thing.
They kind of, I feel like they kind of deal that with the DNA thing. You have this DNA in you that makes the Metroids attack you, but this one makes it not attack you or whatever. And when I start going, I know has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
That's just stupid.
Why is that stupid? It's
so...
not.
Andy, I'm gonna be real. That is an other M tier plot point. It is horrible.
How?
I don't mean to steamroll, but the whole blood DNA nonsense is so fan fiction, third grade fan fiction level writing, that that honestly, that's one of the things that makes me not want to play the game again, because I know I'm gonna get to that point and I'm I gotta skip the cutscene because I don't want to.
I feel like it's so simple. It's she has Thoha blood, she has Machkin blood.
It's not that it's complex. It's that it's dumb. I understand it perfectly fine. I think it's stupid.
But whatever. Let's not talk about that, because this is a different area.
Either way, it's a completely different area. It's a completely different area.
When we do Hanubia, we'll talk about that. Let's move on.
Can I? Yes. I want to move back on to
Quiet Robe,
to this area. No, well, the whole thing with Quiet Robe, right. I just wanted to say, as much as I have problems with how the whole scene happens with Samus' reaction, I did think it was funny how after Samus realizes that Quiet Robe is chill, she just kind of sits there on the floor and listens. I thought that's a nice little touch. It's probably the only good part of that scene, in my opinion.
And Samus talking, I think, is good.
Oh, Samus
I could have taken her leaving that. I want to say though, I feel like the stuff that I wish had a bit more emphasis in this area is some of the lore implications of the murals that are present in the area. There are a bunch of different murals that have Chozo soldiers fighting space pirates and all that kind of stuff, which gives you kind of an insight, or at least it gives a little background character, I guess, to the area. You can obviously see the frescoes showing some kind of battle and whatnot that has happened in the past. There is one specific mural that has Mother Brain on it, actually. And I wish that this aspect of the area was emphasized a little more, because I think it's the first time in game that Mother Brain's betrayal of the Chozo might potentially be referenced, because that's only a manga thing. That is not something ever referenced in the games. But in that mural, there's one specific mural with Mother Brain in it, and Mother Brain is on the side of the Chozo as they're fighting the space pirates, which would be the first time that it's implied that there was ever a betrayal or Mother Brain was ever aligned with the Chozo in the game. It's an aspect of the story that's not at all talked about or even officially part of it. So
Right.
I wonder if that's like an official confirmation or hint at that. And I wish that they'd emphasize that just a tiny little bit more, because that's something that's really cool, and I feel like a lot of people aren't aware of it.
Yeah.
Kind of mixed. On one hand, like, I kind of like that they didn't over explain things. I think when you start to like over explain nitty-gritty details, you can start getting into kind of a lot of the fan fiction issues that we have with Dread's story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, there's like a lot of intriguing questions that those murals raise. I think at the very least, a good compromise would have been for the camera to hover on them a bit more, because
Yes.
it
Just
you know,
show
you
it
get-
more a bit. No,
yeah,
you
you
don't have
get
to
a
explain
brief
it.
yeah, you get a brief flash of like some close-ups where you don't even get, the whole thing in frame. And there's also other murals that you can see in the area that have, different hieroglyphics and images as
Yeah.
well. And so I think, just being able to get like a better look at some of those, I think would have been better. But I also don't
I
think
agree.
you would have had to incorporate that like into the main narrative.
No, I don't think it should have been incorporated into the story, and I don't think it should have been over-explained more. I just wish there was a little bit more of a highlighting on it, because I do love,
I
like,
agree. Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff in Metroid that doesn't need to be highlighted. It's a really cool secret, or you find you're like, wow, you dig into that detail. But like, it kind of feels like Dread, like it's like one way or the other. It's either the game has like this small, tiny, minuscule detail that's not at all explained, or the story is literally told to you by a character in a 20-minute long cutscene. Like, there's no kind of in between. Like, that's why I wish like the 2D games kind of had a lore like scanning system, because that would be the perfect middle ground.
I was gonna say, I think
doesn't
that's the
have.
solution right there.
Yeah.
In fact, because like you already like, if you could scan it, you could get some peripheral information if you wanted it, and if you didn't, that's fine. I think like a game that does it really well is AM2R. Actually, that'll just automatically, like when you enter an area, like scan something and you can read it or you can not read it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I do wish that they would do something like that.
Even something like this, it would be cooler to have like just a little bit more of like an official confirmation. Like, if that's what you mean,
I
like
agree.
give me a little bit more. I don't need you to explain it, but like I would maybe give me a second mural or third one, like makes it a little more obvious. Like, not in like the, oh, I need my handheld, but like the, man, I really want to know if that's what you mean, and like I would love for that
Yeah.
to be true. Let me give me what I want, Batista style.
Two more quick things. And by the way, I'm fighting with every ounce in me not to keep going on this fan fiction thing, 'cause I have a lot to say about that.
We can talk about that next episode.
No.
We're doing an episode on this next week.
Not
Don't worry
today.
about it.
Yeah,
You'll
not
have
today.
you'll have a whole episode to do that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, so two other quick things really about the lore before we move on. One, Quiet Robe disables the Emmys, which I think is like kind of a nice like little break that you get in the game.
But he also helps program them.
Well, and then he gets infected by the X and he turns them back on. So it's and then that X Quiet Robe parasite is gonna come back to play later in the game, which we'll talk about. Well, actually, I guess we won't talk about that.
We can talk about it next week.
Yeah, that one I could maybe say is a little bit out there, but no more out there than some random ship AI having the personality of your former commander. Now that's some fan fiction, let me just say. But
I don't know how AI has advanced in the past year. I do not. That's totally in the realm of possibility to me.
let's not
the
get
thing.
down that rabbit hole.
Here's what I will say. After Metroid Dread and seeing how Adam is in Metroid Dread, yes, that's fan fictiony. But in theory, like I've seen, like, I mean, look at Cortana and like Halo. Like that is very much like a human, like artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it makes sense if it was done.
It would
right.
make sense if it was yes, if it was. Anyways, let's not go there.
If it was good.
Let's move on. Let's talk about.
I do want to.
No,
I do
no,
wanna-
no. Unless
No,
it's
wait,
like
wait,
really
wait,
important.
I want to hear. I want to hear.
It's 5 seconds. It's 5
Oh,
seconds.
God.
It's
Let me
5
hear.
seconds, I promise. So, all I'm gonna say, while I don't really want to see, the murals like over-explained, I do wish the Dread reports had more information in the game, because there's there
should
is
be
so
in the
much
game.
information. There's so much juicy details in those Dread reports that are just absolutely nowhere found in the game. Like, obviously, one of the biggest ones, I think, is Samus's suit. Like, there's absolutely nothing about Samus's suit in the game, but like the Dread reports tell you all about like how it's basically self-repairing from the fusion suit. Anyways, I've gone over 5 seconds. I'm done now.
I think there should just be scans. Like that's. I think that's the
I
answer.
agree.
And I don't know why there's not, because they already do it. Like it's not that hard. I don't think it's that hard. And you could totally remember Prime 2D when we played that deck. Like that just scans. Like
I mean, even if you just made it like go the classic 2D route and don't make it scan, just have a few of them, have them be in the environment. You walk by them, you hit A, and you
Yeah.
read them, and
Yeah.
that's it. Like it could even be a little like that. I would be okay with that.
All right, let's talk about the bosses of this area. This area has a couple fun bosses, and I think the one that obviously sticks out the most is Escue, which is and you guys could probably verify this, but that is like the bane of these Dread mode runs, in boss rush mode runs, because this guy, oh my god, he hits like it's very very hard to not take damage from this guy because it's a really small room. He's flying around like a maniac everywhere. Actually, so the second time that I ever fought him, I did a little bit of sequence breaking, and I went and got the screw attack before I went and got Escue, and I sliced through him like a turkey on Thanksgiving with the screw attack. But without it, he's kind of like an annoyingly. He's not like super challenging, but like he's annoying nevertheless kind of boss. But this is, if you guys remember, the first time where you beat the boss and that Core X pops out. That was so awesome. So awesome. I remember just going absolutely buck wild when that happened on my first playthrough of Dread. That was so good.
I was watching Dak's live stream when he was playing through this boss for the first time, and I got to see Dak in real time pop off when the Core X popped
That was
out.
sick. That was
awesome.
like yes. Like that's like as a Fusion fan, I was like, give me all the Fusion fan service that I can get. I will 100% take it. And that was because I don't remember if that's the first time you see an X. I'm pretty sure you see an X before that. I'm pretty sure
you see the X before, but not the Core X.
You see the X before, but now that's the first time you see the Core X. Because it was like one of those things where like, okay, they brought the X parasites back, but like, oh, maybe it's a little cameo. Maybe they just have like a small little like part of the game. But then when the Core X gets brought back in, and you're like, oh, like the X are actually being fully implemented into the game. Like this is sick. They're not just cameo. That's why I was like so excited. It's like
and you fight it the exact same way where it's always homing in on you. But now you also have the flash shift, so you can like
it's in 3D and zigzag. It looks sick. Yeah, like they nailed it. Yeah. They really nailed it with the Core X.
I love the transformation animation when a creature goes from regular to X. I love because like in Fusion, it has like this kind of glitchy pixelated effect, but I love in this game how like it turns into like this slimy, oily substance instead before it like goes into it looks so gross and you know me, like I love when Metroid gets gross and disgusting.
Yeah. Great. Well, I not even a great fight, but like a great moment. I think more so than a great
I think
fight.
it's a great fight.
I think it's a good fight as well. Actually, I think it's one of the better designed Metroid bosses. Actually, like I really like Escue's speed. The projectiles are really cool. It honestly feels more like a modern Metroidvania boss than a lot of Metroid bosses nowadays in comparison. I really like the Escue design. Really, really cool.
I will say, music though. This piece of music might be my Dairon.
I don't even remember the piece of music.
This piece of music.
I don't even know what it is.
No. This piece of music might be my least favorite in the game. I hate it. But the boss fight is really good and makes up for it, I think.
I'm gonna listen to it real quick as you all talk.
Right. Well, while you're doing that, you also fight a couple twin soldier Chozo robots a couple times in Ferenia. I think so. You fight them immediately after you get the storm missiles, which is amazing because you fought these guys before. You fought them in Gavarin, and without the storm missiles, they're kind of a pain. With the storm missiles, it's like, let's go. They are so much easier, more manageable, more fun, I think, to take out when you have the storm missiles going on. I really like this fight. And you get to fight him in like the ginormous hallway. So you have a lot of room to kind of move around and get a little bit more tactical, if you will, with this fight as well. So I enjoy this fight. Even though you've kind of already done it before, I think this is the best version of that fight.
Yeah, I really because all the fights beforehand are with one Chozo soldier. This is the first time where they introduce two. You have one of the silver variants and one of the gold variants, which has more health. And then I think the final duo you do, they're both gold variants when you take them on in Ferenia. But yeah, I love all the robot Chozo fights. I think they're all cool. I like You know, it almost, it weirdly enough, it almost feels like a Smash game with how like the platforms are laid out.
Yeah, kind
you
of.
know, the only difference is you don't get KO'd and you don't have out of bounds areas, but like the way the platforms are laid out, it kind of reminds me of like how you'd play a platform fighter.
Yeah, I love the Robot Chozo soldier fights. For every reason that Doom just said. I also think one of the arenas you fight them in is like a direct replica of the SAX boss room from Metroid Fusion. That area with the two platforms, and you run up the left side and climb over. Um, but yeah, I love the Robot Chozo soldier fights. Those boss fights, both the one and the two, though obviously the double fights are a bit harder. They're such a like a noob check kind of boss, because like once you fought them like once, you know exactly what to do. But I remember the first time I played against them, and I was those are exciting. Like they felt so fast and frantic,
Hmm.
and it really allows you to just kind of go crazy with like the flash shift and all that, and just like run circles around them and set the pace, and they're right up behind you all the time, firing constantly. Yeah, really cool fights. But they're fights that once you've done once or twice, you kind of get the you know what to do. And then of course, as you get more better at them, you kind of realize you can mash at them a bit more. Then you kind of learn to respect them less the more you fight them. I think goes for a lot of the bosses in this game, but I think especially for them, because they're a bit more telegraphed in their attacks.
I like that though. I love the feeling
Yeah.
when you find when you start disrespecting a boss more and just going more aggressive each
I
time.
agree. No, I love that. I think it makes them very enjoyable to go back and fight, because it's not like, oh, this annoying pattern again. It's kind of just like a slugfest, and you kind of get
Yeah.
through it. See how faster and faster you can get through it. So, yeah, really really cool that they're here.
It's so satisfying to like lock on really quick with your store missiles, and like it only takes a quick second, and then you can fire them and charge them up, and then smash them. And when you have all your missiles, it's fantastic. I love it. We should also mention very quickly our friend the Emmy as well, who unfortunately, like, this is probably my biggest complaint about Metroid Dread, actually, is that you never get a boss fight versus an Emmy. I think
Yeah.
I think the Power Bomb Emmy was the time to do it. So that's not in this area necessarily, but yeah, this is probably like we mentioned earlier in the Emmy zone. I think it's one of the more challenging Emmys, maybe the most challenging, just considering its ability. The wave beam is tracking you and shooting at you through walls. I really enjoy the design of this Emmy as well. So this is cool, and I feel like yeah, again, it just man, it makes me wish that we would have got that full-fledged boss fight against it. Like, it could have been like a cool like Diggernaut-esque style fight, and unfortunately we didn't get that. But this Emmy in particular, well, it's not necessarily a boss, very very cool. Maybe probably my favorite of the bunch.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say about this one. I feel like a lot of when you talk about Emmy is like the room, because it's kind of like part of the boss. Very cool room. It's another Emmy fight, nothing crazy. I will say that as much as I think the purple Emmy is great, and I love the design of the purple Emmy. On the other hand, that's like the part of the Emmy designs where I'm like, I wish they had done a little bit more than just making them like a solid flat color. I like the solid white Emmy, looks great, and like thematically works well with the room and all that. But then you have just like this entirely purple, like, I don't know, maybe like just work it, like maybe put like the I forgot the name of the corporation that makes the Emmys, but like put the logo on it in purple or something, or give
I
it
think
like
it's
a
like Celion.
Celion or
Celion
Helios
or
or
whatever.
something. Yeah, but like maybe give it like a purple stripe. I don't know, like very nitpicky. But I remember I was just like going back to that. I was like, wow, this thing is purple. It's not even like a
I
light
agree.
purple. It's purple. It's weird.
I agree. I think some of the solid flat color Emmys
Yeah,
look a
it's
little
odd.
goofy. Like they don't take me out too much, but yeah, they
No,
definitely.
it's a huge nitpick.
Yeah.
It doesn't really mean anything. And by the way, do y'all want to put in your guesses again on who created the Emmy?
I think Doom was right. It's like Excellion or Excelsior or something like that.
I literally, oh, here we go. Excellion Star Corporation.
There you go. Good job, Doom.
Boom, boom. Excellion Star Corporation. Yeah, like this is a cool. It's like a Resident Evil kind of looking logo. Kind of reminds
Yeah,
me of the
right.
Umbrella Corp.
I think these guys are coming back, man. I think that they're going to
I would-
show up again. Which
I
would be
would
fine.
like. I would be down with that. Like,
Yeah.
that's. I don't make them like the big bad guy, but like that, I'd be okay with that. I feel like sometimes Metroid introduces stuff and then doesn't bring it back for like no good reason, like you could work this Excellion Star Corporation back in some kind of way pretty easily.
I think, like, not to veer too off topic, but imagine if they'd have introduced Excellion in like a Metroid Other M, so it wasn't like the Galactic Federation. You had a distinct other entity that was the problem, so it didn't make Samus, the events of Metroid Fusion kind of look like been there, done that a little bit. That could have worked.
It just occurred to me I should have played dumb and not known what that was, because then Andy would have actually used that as a question for the next Zelda versus Metroid trivia. Not happening anymore, I don't think.
What, the name of the corporation?
That was too easy. I would have got that if you hadn't have. Don't worry.
I don't trust your quality of too easy on questions, because like a majority of the Metroid questions, those were like made up nonsense questions that even the most dedicated of fans, 1% of them would know.
Well, you guys just got to hit the books for the rubber match coming up this year and see what happens. I'm working on a special gimmick actually for that. It's going to be a stipulation match.
I want to mention, by the way, my roommate Pat said he's looking forward to the next one because of all of our podcast episodes. He really likes, because he's a big Zelda fan too.
Is he? Okay.
Yes, he really likes our two Zelda cast and Metroid or the Omega Metroid crossover episodes for that reason. So he's looking forward to it.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll have to cook up some diabolical. Maybe I'll do like the old spin the wheel, make a deal gimmick or something for the rubber match. I don't know. We'll get to that.
I'm down.
All right. Let's. Really quick. I just want to go over the major items that you get: storm missiles, wave beam, space jump, which we didn't really touch on, but probably don't really need to, and then and talk about the music, which we've already kind of talked about a little bit, but maybe just to put a point on it. I'm a big fan of the Ferenia soundtrack. I think it sounds great. I think it's probably the strongest piece of music. And again, it's not like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10 banger, but I think it's very serviceable in the moment. And I think that it sounds nice to listen to outside of the moment, like on its own as well. And obviously I think Nintendo maybe thought that this was also their best piece of music since they used it for the trailer of this game. Still hoping that they work on that for Metroid 6 and maybe invest a little bit more time and resources into the soundtrack. But yeah, I think it's a good track. I cannot for the life of me think of any other musical track in this area. You said the Escue fight. I can't think of it.
I was gonna say
the Emmy zone, I guess. Like
when as earlier said, I was gonna go listen to the Escue boss battle theme while y'all were talking. I think the Escue theme is the best Ferenia theme. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna listen to it right now.
It's not. Okay, so like the main theme. Like I wish these themes were more distinct, but like the main theme that plays for Ferenia, to me, has like a weird sound font. It kind of sounds like it has like the voices from like the Rugrats theme in it. Like there's something weird about it. I don't know what it is. Doom, what?
I'm agreeing with you. I'm like,
it's weird. It's like I went and I was like, what is up with this? It sounds like a Rugrats. And then the theme that plays after you've beaten the Emmy, which I think is a different theme, that one has the classic Metroid Dread motif of the do 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 do, like that sound going in every track. It's so annoying in the background, and it's in this song again. Don't like it. The SQ music though, you know why it's good? Because it's a boss battle theme. I'm not subjected to it as I'm exploring the area. It's a frantic, crazy, nonsensical boss theme for a crazy, frantic boss, and then once you beat it, it's over. It adds to the theme. It's not like a lot of these themes in this game where I'm trying to like play through the game and the music is like fighting my ears. So I give the vote to the Escue. Yes, I'm sorry. It's fighting. It's fighting my ears, assaulting my ears.
You haters.
The Escue boss battle theme I think is the best. I'm not gonna lie.
So I just listened to it, Doom, and I don't think it's the best theme in the Ferenia area, but I think it's fine. I think it's like pulsating. It's frantic. It's got some energy to it. Now that being said, I can see why you might not be a fan of it because there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff being thrown against the wall.
So it is so goofy. It's not even that. Like I actually disagree with Dak. I think there's a ton of like iconic Metroid tracks that have tons of going on. tons
okay,
of
okay. Sorry.
maybe not
No,
Andy's
I
version
thought
of
you were gonna. I
iconic.
thought you were gonna say Metroid Dread tracks iconic. No.
No. Like in the series, like crazy stuff going on, like 16th notes in 30
Like
seconds.
what?
Like I think even some ambient tracks, like the Impact Crater theme. Like I wouldn't call that iconic, but I think that's a really good track where you have tons of like layers of different like sample libraries and synths going on. But I think it totally fits the atmosphere of that area.
And it works. It
But,
blends
like,
well together. Where I feel like the
Yeah,
Dread ones, they're
exactly.
all fighting for my attention. But continue.
Exactly.
Sorry.
My point is I don't think that like just having like an overabundance of things, I don't think that in and of itself is necessarily a bad thing. It's how you utilize those elements.
I agree with that.
Sure.
My
yeah.
my problem with the Escue theme is like it sounds so I almost swore. It sounds so goofy. It sounds like
It
it
does
should
sound
be
goofy.
it sounds like it should be in a Mario Galaxy game. Like you have
Yes.
like it sounds whimsical. It sounds anything but Metroid, and it sounds anything but Metroid Dread. It's so whimsical. Like listen to the piano part in like the 30 or 40-second mark where it's like like
I am sorry to everyone listening on headphones right now for that. Oh boy.
Yeah, I agree that it is very goofy. It's very nonsensical. It does have a Mario Galaxy kind of esque to it.
I'm gonna play this theme just so that all of our listeners can judge for themselves.
But it kind of has a little bit of Metroid to it. I don't know, a little tiny bit.
All right. It is kind of ridiculous. Can you guys hear this?
No, because your mic is set up to not have these pickup sounds off of your phone. Thankfully,
well,
everyone can go.
You can edit it in post.
I was gonna say you can edit it in post if you really want to, or
maybe I'll use it as our intro music for this week.
You should.
There we go. I don't know.
If we want people to listen to the episode. I don't know if that's a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you're right. It's like it's okay. It's not. Go ahead.
You were just talking. I
was just gonna say, like, I think for me it kind of fits the theme of Metroid Dread soundtrack as a whole, where it's just like it's fine.
Yeah, it's bad.
No, it's fine. Like it's serviceable. It gets the job done. Is it something that you're gonna be just like, wow, what a great boss theme? Like, no, I don't think so. But like, I think it's fine. That's just me. I'm the Metroid Dread soundtrack apologist on this show.
We can agree to disagree on that. I want to talk more about the Ferenia theme though, because I've gone on way too much about Escue. Ferenia. Here's the thing. It's definitely not one of my favorite themes in the game, but like overall, I think there's a lot to work with what's going on here. I think my biggest problem here, and a lot of my problems with Dread's soundtrack, is a lot of the sample libraries and a lot of the synth patches used. A lot of these, especially in the vocals used, in the choir patches used, they sound way too synthesized, way too fake. And like all the Metroid Prime choirs are synthesized, even the ones in Prime 3 that are trying to sound like a real choir is singing it. But like even the ones that aren't, even when they do sound a little fake, they're mixed, Kenji Yamamoto mixes them in the way that to where they sound alien. Like there's an alien choir, going with the environment. And I don't really get that with this. It just sounds like, a cheap 80s synth choir. And I feel like, reworking, those choirs and some of the other synth patches going, I think you can turn what I think is an okay average track into something really memorable. I think the actual composition happening here, I think, is pretty decent, actually.
Okay, I'll take that. Yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, I think like, music is what it is. Not the best, not the worst. Does its job. And I think the main theme does its job well. I do think that it has a strong theme to give this area. So, all right, let's unless anybody has anything else about music, let's move on. Let's talk about some of these expansions and Shinespark puzzles. And Doom, I wonder if you want to take the lead, because I kind of cut you off earlier on the show. So I think that we probably have a lot of the similar Shinespark puzzles that we really enjoy. So take us away.
I mean, you didn't really cut me. If anything, I've been cutting you off more in this episode, I think, than you have me. So
I'm used to that. I have 3 podcasts. It's okay.
But yeah, obviously you and me, Andy, like we love the Shinespark in this game. You know, we don't need to tell our viewers. I think that this is easily our favorite interpretation of the Shinespark in this game, and I think Ferenia is one of the areas that makes some of the best use out of it with the all of the puzzles. There's so many cool puzzles in this area, and what I really love, it's not quite Breath of the Wild open, but like there's multiple ways that you can solve these puzzles, which I think is really cool. You don't always get that in a Metroid game, but a lot of these Shinespark puzzles you can solve in multiple ways. You can charge up from like a completely different side of the room and use the wall jump off a completely different wall and manipulate your movements in a completely different area than you would if you charged from the other side of the room, but you can still use it to get the item. And one of the biggest ones that I think of is the one you get right after you fight the first robot Chozo soldier after the Quiet Robe cutscene. There's one right before you go to the elevator that leads back down.
Yeah.
And on my first playthrough, I solved this puzzle by going from the elevator itself, by going to the right, storing my boost, quickly wall jumping, and then going through the crevice, and then getting it that way. But then I saw YouTube videos of people solving it another way, where you charge your speed booster up on the other side by charging it up by the fan, and then wall jumping in real time with the Shinespark, and then making your way to that crevice instead. And that's the way I do it now, just because one, it's quicker, and two, it looks so much cooler and it feels way more satisfying to pull off. But yeah, that's probably like, I don't know if it's not my favorite. My favorite is the one in Ferenia. You know the one I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
This is probably like a top 2 or a top 3 though. I really like this Shinespark puzzle.
Yeah, I think that this one's fun. I do still Shinespark from the tram car room. Just wall jump, shoot down, slide, and then boost that way. But like you can do it a bunch of different ways, and it's fantastic. But I don't even think that's the best Shinespark puzzle in Ferenia, actually. The one for me that I feel like such a like this. I feel like I'm like oats and goats whenever I do this properly, right? Like with the one where you get to Ferenia from Gavarin, you charge up your speed boost, you run, you jump, you wall jump, you slide, you crouch, you go back into the tunnel that you've just come, and you ball boost up, and then you get that missile tank. It's like, mwah, it looks so awesome when you do it properly, and you feel like an absolute rock star if you do it, because there's a lot of movement for it. It's very, very satisfying to do, and you've got to be pretty specific to do it that way. And I think you can really only do it that one particular way as well. So it's like, I always feel very accomplished, even though now it's kind of like second nature and I know how to do it.
I completely forgot about that puzzle. That one is also that one's probably like really close there. I don't know if that one's my favorite, but
it's awesome.
Probably the first one's still my favorite, but that one is like really close up there. That's another one. I definitely know that there's another way you could solve that puzzle, because I remember specifically my first attempt, I definitely didn't do it like the way you're supposed to do it, but I definitely do the intended method nowadays, but I can't remember how I did it on my first attempt, so like, yeah, it's hard to say.
Another couple fun, there's another Shinespark puzzle that's pretty fun in like the frozen area where, this one's simpler, but you gotta charge up, you gotta spark down, turn into a morph ball to go that little tunnel, and you zoom across like the frozen ice, which is pretty fun. And then there's just kind of like a classic. It feels like your classic, like right out of Zero Mission kind of Shinespark puzzle where there's an energy part, and I want to say it's from the Ferenia elevator room where you go towards your left and you're Shinesparking, and you got to go mid-air Shinespark, up a ramp, do it again, up another ramp, through a tunnel. It's classic Shinespark puzzle right out of Fusion, right out of Zero Mission. It's not that hard, but there's something just very, very satisfying about doing it, I think.
I know the one you're talking about. It definitely gives me the Chozodia vibes of that one where you're just constantly ascending upwards using, saving your boost on the ramps and all that.
Yeah, it's really fun. And you know what? Not even a Shinespark puzzle. This one's just like a regular old missile expansion. But there's one where I think it's actually right at the beginning of Ferenia from the Gavarin entrance, where underneath there is the Chozo statue that gives you the space jump, and there's a tunnel in the wall, like really high up. That I think most people would come back to it later in the game, but essentially you can only access this expansion inside when you have your space jump, when you have your diffusion beam, when you need a lot of different things in order to get this. You shoot one of the tumors in the wall, and you have to very specifically space jump up. There's like a diagonal platform and like an backwards L coming out of the ceiling where you have to be really tight with your space jumps in order to get the expansion. I really like that. Again, it makes me feel like very accomplished when I do it, and like I'm kind of partial to those ones where you got to be kind of pinpoint accurate with your movements and stuff like that. It just makes me feel good when I can pull it off. So that one I really like as well.
Nice.
By the way, I used all of these. If you want to see video of these, they're all on OmegaMetroid.com. You can check out the Shinespark puzzles in our Metroid Dread section. They're very, very cool. Very cool. So yeah, that's all the expansions that stuck out to me. Did I miss any?
I don't know. I mean, you all just rattled off a bunch of Shinespark puzzles. So if you all said this one, you can cut me off. But the one that I think I was the hardest for me to pull off, and then I did that one. I don't know if I went to other ones. Was the one that's near the Dairon elevator or whatever, and it's like it's in a little. There's a little missile expansion, a little like alcove. You have to like build up speed, go up the wall, and then go into morph ball mode.
Yeah.
Hit the bomb, and then like before you go through the droppable blocks, you have to like shine spark to the right and get that little like into that little slot where where that one is. I remember that one was hard, and
Yeah,
that one took me a while to get. And then after that one, I was like, all right, I'll do another one. And that was so satisfying. I'll do another one. Like I'll practice another one later in the week, and I never did because that one took a lot of time.
Yeah, that was the first one that I brought up. So what's funny about that is, so I did it the same way you did it at first, but there's a significantly easier way to do that. When you're in ball form, you can actually just hold Shine Spark and ball and then diagonal spark downwards, which I didn't know that you could, because this is the first game you can spark downwards. And so I didn't know you could do that before, but yeah, it makes that puzzle like significantly easier.
I wish I knew that. Sorry, I forgot you had brought that one up, but there were a couple favorites you had listed, but yeah, that's the one that.
That's all good. We were just rattling them off, so.
There's so many different ways that you can do, specifically the one that you brought up, Doom. Like you could do them in so many creative ways that the way that we describe it might not be how you do it. So you describe it in a different way, and it's like a completely different experience, which is one of the many reasons I love Metroid Dread as much as I do. I think like. Shine Sparking is just so fun. I love it so much, and I think that this is like the best of the bunch in terms of the series, in terms of those kind of puzzles. So there we go. Okay, well, we have I think we have thoroughly mapped out the fallen city of Ferenia. What I would say still is probably my favorite area of ZDR and Metroid Dread. So I'm glad that we got to do this episode. It was a little bit impromptu, actually, a little bit last minute, but I'm glad that we went this way, because I think that we have discussed this area more in depth than anyone else on this planet. I bet you. So I'm happy about that.
And it was an unoptimized discussion because we spent a good amount of it arguing over a story matter that extends far beyond the actual area itself. We could, there's like, maybe we got to go back at some point. Once we've done all the areas in every Metroid game, we then do Mapping Metroid Deluxe, where like it's a 6-hour episode.
Dread mode.
We go through every single, there's
no
still so much
breaks.
There's still so much we didn't touch on. But yeah, I'm glad we went through this one. Like we were kind of touching on earlier in the episode, I love these areas that don't feel like it's the jungle area. It's the water area. Like this one, it's more memorable. There's a lot more going on. It's really cool. As much as like, the Chozo, the new, evolution of the Chozo and how it's depicted in Metroid, has its good and bad parts. I think this is one of the good parts. I do like some of this aspects that, the Malkin tribe kind of brought in. The aesthetic's really cool. It's different. As much as I would have liked to have seen maybe kind of like more of the classic like Chozo stuff, or maybe more of the Prime Chozo stuff. Like this is really cool, and it's not like the same old kind of stuff. And it obviously has a lot of lore implications. I love like little lore tidbits. I wish there was a bit more highlighting on it, but it looks really cool. You get like a side of the Chozo that like Dread's really trying to show you that there's a side of him we haven't seen before, and this is like a picture perfect kind of thing for it. Obviously, huge implications with Quiet Robe and what you learn from him, and has the Core X reveal, which is super cool. So
Such
yeah,
a good moment.
love this area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping I'd be a little more prepared today. I was playing Dread literally right before we started, as I told you guys in the back chat. But yeah, unfortunately, like by the time we were about to start, I was still at Dairon, so I was still a ways off from hitting Ferenia. So.
Doom, you were on
no.
fire today. What are you talking? You brought it.
I was gonna say I think I was still able to bring the heat, but I would have liked to be a little more prepared. But hey, you know what? We take those.
No,
we work with what we got.
I think that was a strong performance today from you, sir.
Well, hey, when
Yeah.
we do the Mapping Metroid Deluxe Edition,
Yeah.
you'll feel a lot more prepared on episode 1200 or something.
You know what? We got to do a
You know,
Mapping
if-
Metroid on Samus Returns. I think at this point, that's got to be the only game we haven't done an area for, right? Maybe we should make a point to that to do that.
Have we not done
I
Samus
thought we did a
Returns?
Samus Returns. It wasn't,
Well,
or was it AM2R?
We
we
definitely
did
did
AM2R.
AM2R.
Maybe that's what
You
it
guys
is.
you guys did AM2R before I was on the podcast. You did Hydro Station.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if we've done Samus Returns. We might have. There's so many episodes.
I feel like it's because it doesn't have that many. Anyways, I digress. Let's put that in our back pocket for our next Mapping Metroid. I think that'd be fun.
All right.
I wouldn't mind doing another playthrough of that.
Yeah, I'm about due actually, and I have some fun ideas for that game, for that project that we were talking about. So, okay, well, I think that we've reached the end here. We have mapped Ferenia and had a great time doing it, and yeah, I think that we had a lot of great discussion, and a discussion that's not over yet. A lot of stuff about story, a lot of stuff about music, and I think that we're gonna bleed right into next week when you gentlemen present your version of events in the way that you would have liked to see Metroid Dread's story unfold. I'm really excited about that. I've been looking forward to that for a long time. I pitched that a while ago, but we never seemed to quite get there. Mostly because I didn't explain exactly what I was thinking when I pitched it, but I'm excited about that. That's going to be next week. So definitely tune into that. Metroid Dread, a little bit of a resurgence in the Omega Metroid Discord here after lying dormant for a little bit. It's suddenly, we're talking speedruns, we're talking music, we're talking story again. I love to see it.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, the big part of it on my end is just with my new PC. I have so much more storage, and so I can actually hold more games now. And so I've been trying out my emulators and stuff that I haven't been able to do before. And
Dude,
my God,
Metroid
man.
Dread isn't available on PC.
Oh, it is. It is.
You can if you own a legally owned copy,
You know what?
can
You're
dump
right.
your game.
Yeah, you're right.
And there are YouTube tutorials that can teach you how to do that.
At least on my end, it's also like it's the summer. It's kind of like when you go back to games you haven't played in a little bit or try out something new before the big. Like that's how I got into Destiny 2 years ago. I was like in between games. It was a summertime. I was like, I need something new. And in this case, it was like, I haven't played Metroid Dread in a little while. I need a little something new. But don't you worry. Don't you worry. The discussion will change to Armored Core 6 and Starfield in the coming months in the Discord server. Don't you worry.
Hold
Andy,
on, though.
Don't you worry.
Hold on. I'm going to try and politic a little bit here. Have you given that demo for Pikmin 4 a chance yet?
No,
Because
I have not.
I am about to 100% that game. I think I have
not.
like one more thing to do, and then I will have played a glorious 30 hours. It's not going to be any longer than that.
I should give it a try.
so
I should give it a try. I hate to be someone who is a hater, and I don't hate Pikmin at all, but like I would like to give it a fair shake if people are saying it's a lot of fun. I've just been lately not playing Pikmin, so maybe I gotta get into a Pikmin playing mood.
Yeah, I wonder what gets one in a Pikmin. I don't know.
Maybe a little StarCraft or Age of Empires or something. I don't know.
Nevertheless, okay, well, that is going to do it for us. Thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. This was a long episode, but I think it, like I said, I think we delivered today, by God. So, again, thanks for hanging out with us. Of course, we want you to check us out over on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, at Omega Metroid Pod. I'm at Spiteri316. Dak is at DakCity_. Doom is at Doom Lacrosse. And we would love If you checked us out wherever you got your podcast, like, subscribe. The best thing you could do is recommend us to a Metroid fan in your life. Maybe somebody that just likes video games. Maybe somebody that's played Metroid Dread and wants to learn a little bit more about the series. Tell them about the Omega Metroid podcast. We are also over on Patreon. We got the great Metroid area ranking that is rolling on. Speaking of areas like this, we have tons of different stuff going on. We have a new Instagram account that I feel like I should probably plug more. We're over on Threads. We have a song available for download on Bandcamp, our theme that Doominal commissioned. We got so much stuff going on that it's hard to plug all of it at the end of the show. But, of course, we would love if you joined us along for the ride. Wherever you get your podcasts, check out OmegaMetroid.com. We are going to get out of here, but until next week, everybody, take care.